Efter det østrig-ungarske monarki overtog Bosnien og Herzegovina, opførte de en masse bygninger her i Sarajevo. Blandt andet Nationalmuseet og Posthuset, og det her rådhus bag ved mig, som blev opført i 1892. Men for at det kunne lade sig gøre, var det nødt til at rive en masse hus ned. Og der var der en mand, der nægtede at få ødelagt sit hus. Og vi skal nu ind og snakke med Kinan, som vil fortælle hele historien om, hvordan dette hus i dag står som en restaurant på den anden side af denne bro.
What is interesting about this house that this house was moved from one side of the Bank River to another. Actually, the story goes when Hungarian Emperor arrived in Bosnia and they took over Bosnia. They arrived here and they participate very much in building Sarajevo like it is now, but they want to show the power to the people and to build something big and huge, just in a main spot in Bascharsha. And they bought all land around it, houses and stuff like that. But there was one old and stubborn grumpy guy who didn't want to sell it because he don't have any reason to sell his house, his internal peace. They had a lot of problems with him, and he didn't want to sell it again. They put him in a jail, and after some while he decided, okay, this is not going good, you know. So he said, okay, I have a deal. You need to give me 2 bags of golden coins and to move my house to another side of the river, and in original shape, in brick by brick, stone by stone. And that's what happened. And it was actually in 1890.
I 1998 blev huset lavet op til en restaurant, og i alle de 20 år, hvor restauranten har eksisteret, har den været ejet af Kinans familie. Udover at være kendt som en traditionel bosnisk restaurant, er huset også kendt som værende et såkaldt spejthouse. Dog er huset ikke kun en restaurant. Det er også et lille museum. Dog var det for lille til kun at være et museum, så huset fungerer i dag som en slags kombineret restaurant og museum.
Now in political terminology you have that term spite house, when somebody's spiting, you know, and this is the first spite house in the world. Those are old people who doesn't want to sell their houses or their belongings for whatever, you know. They don't mind money, or they don't need money. They just have like 10 years to live more, and they want to live it where they grew up, in their house, in their that's their soulful place.
Den historiske restaurant kan samtidig tolkes som værende et museum, som viser husets historie og en del af Sarajevos fortid. Men ikke nok med dette, gør Inat Kuća det muligt, at den viljestærke mand end i dag kan bevares som et symbol på det bosniske folk. Bosniakkerne afspejlede sig selv i den viljestyrke, han havde, og han blev et eksempel på noget af det bosniske folk er stolt af.
Everything what you see in here, it's original, from posters to these documents, everything what you see, and you will see more in here than in some museum.
At manden han sad på denne bro hver dag røg sin cigaret, mens han tåsefuldt blev flyttet sten for sten, indtil det stod færdigt som et symbol på den bosniske viljestyrke. Og den dag i dag, over 130 år senere, står det her stadig præcis som dengang, som en tidslom midt i Sarajevo.